This is why, again, we've wrestled with this case study I'm about to mention for years. The same UAP hovered on the same highway. This is one of Dr. Carter Turner's cases. A lot of people didn't even see it, just kept on driving by. But those who did see it could not agree on what they saw. Why? Because the phenomenon seeks to be seen, but by the time we see it, it incarnates the archetype. What that means is we may not be dealing with the ghost, the apparition, the demon, the god, right? We may not even be dealing with a spider at the tip of the snake's tail. What we're really dealing with is with the snake hiding in the shadows of reality in only incarnating through archetypes the moment we observe it. It's triggered. Here
Mm.
I am. And so, what this means, though, is that it's not only seeking to be seen, seeking to be sought, it's seeping or seeking to be shaped.
What if we were tricked?
Yep.
This, I'm not saying you or I, or
Mm,
maybe a few of the people that are
yep.
listening, but what if majority of this field of research of UFOs, aliens, entities, ghosts,
Mhm.
etc., what if they used us, tricked us, or used us as an energy mechanism to manifest this false ideology of what the phenomena really is, and then what
There
we
we
have
go.
today
There we
of,
go.
and then what we have today in the
Mhm.
mainstream of the this paranormal research is not actually what's going on. So we're
Right.
actually we're talking about a bunch of bullshit for the most part, not all of it, but for the most
Mhm.
part, a bunch of bullshit that was all manifested through us to bring about this archetypal, I guess, this archetypal part of the phenomena that really is not true in nature. It's a trick by these entities to make us to
Mhm.
go down the wrong path in a way
Mhm.
and not view them for what they really are, what they have been for thousands of years.
Absolutely. So, and so what they do is they kind of collapse both intelligences and say, well, yeah, but it's all your fault. You're the reason it's biting you. No, right? I did fall for the archetype, but there's a proto-intelligence hiding out there that's using me and my vision, consciousness as the observer. It's using me in order to diversify its identity. Now, watch this. It's not the spider that bites, it's the proto-intelligence.
Mm.
I'm only responsible for, sometimes I'm only responsible for the archetype, not the independent entity out there in the shadows. They confuse the two. Oh, well, yeah, you're a demon. No, right? The phenomenon did that. It may incarnate as horns and hooves, but the horns and hooves didn't do it to me. The phenomenon did. And so what I'm looking at again is when the phenomenon manifests, it manifests as proto-intelligence, but when it incarnates, that we are co-creations of that archetype. And many people confuse that. They'll say things like, and I've heard it from other researchers, well, if you got hurt by the entities, it's your fault. You brought in negative energy. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous notion because they're doing this to children. It's insanity. And so it's fascinating to me because it's not just the imaging, it's not the interface, the cognitive interface that incarnates, but there is some kind of apparatus to where the witness stops thinking and now becomes thought for. Now the archetype is not just a thought form, but the proto intelligence is forming the thought that's creating the thought form.
Mm.
It becomes self seeing. And this again is why I need to be seen in order to construct my archetype. But I can't, right? So I can't be seen without you. I need you right? To construct my manifestation, my incarnation. Okay, what am I going to do? Thought. Look this way. And we have the illusion of controlling these instances. It's CE5. Well, what do you mean? Did you look at it? Yes. So it becomes self-confirming, and we can kind of chase our own tail after this. But yes, the problem I'm having, though, and this is something that I'm really going to deal with intellectually, is that by the time we see it, it may not be real. That may not be the proto-intelligence. It may be the phenomenon weaponizing the observer effect in order to structure itself in my presence. Do you acknowledge me? Yes. But when you do, it's no longer me.
And it's kind of like how we talked about, in the past, what is this reality? Simulation, whatever, it's much more sophisticated than people talk about. We live in a computer game,
Mhm.
but it's almost like they
Yes,
use us to rewrite the code to manifest and upload a new program within this reality. And the program
yes.
is the image that we view the phenomena as currently, in the state of ufology.
Oh my God. Yeah, you hit it on the head, my friend. I want to suggest that a lot of this is ritual magic, disguised as archetypes. The pathology is consistent, it's pattern confirming, it's cross cultural. So that's why I'm a proponent of ignoring all the archetypes. Look at the footprints. What are they doing that connects all of the phenomena? Not Steer and Edna, not Uncle Fred, not Horns and Hooves. There seems to be another category out there that I'm leaning towards formerly human that has, and Jason Giorgiani mentioned this, learned how to hack the matrix and is on the other side manipulating our reality.
And needs us to upload the new program that they wish to
There
deceive
we
us.
go. Absolutely. Can you help me co-create this archetype, my friend? I'm over here, but I want you to be a witness. And my God, you want to be a witness too, don't you? Sure, I do. Of course, I'm doing CE5. Ha ha! Hey, it's my intentions. Did you intend to incarnate the phenomenon? Did you even know it needed your sight in order to shape its existence in this reality? And this is the whole point. I want to be a witness. Well, it wants to be witnessed. I want to see. It wants to be seen. I want disclosure. It wants obfuscation. And here we are.
Beyond the Forbidden's favorite demonologist. Welcome back, man.
Thank you, brother. It's always good to be with you, and I'm excited to talk about the research.
Hell yeah. So I'm surprised I haven't shown you this clip, and you told me what you want to talk about. So the observer effect, and some other things.
Mhm.
I thought I showed you this, and some of the listeners probably like, damn, you gonna show this again. But it it's so important though. What Terrence Howard says, because this goes on along with your research, Steve Merrill's research, Barry
Mhm.
Fitzgerald. But we could go and screen share this. Hold up. Let's see. I have to cut that out. Share sound. Boom. All right.
Can you explain that?
Well, as an actor, as you're more like a medium.
Mm-hmm.
When you really get there, you go into this zone and you really divorce yourself of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you just become a garment that something else puts on. Now,
Right.
a lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks,
Mm-hmm.
instead of allowing that spirit, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place,
Mm-hmm.
go in a bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror. Um, we'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off and search until you see your own glow, your own aura. and then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing
Yeah.
because you'll feel like some hands are on you
Wow.
and you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But if you stay with it, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you'll walk out.
Man.
What you think, man?
To serve as a vessel for something else, you would become their biological avatar, and you don't even know what it is. We
That's just
barely
an
have an
actor.
idea of
Like that's just
who
an
we
actor.
are.
See, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's just
Yeah.
an actor doing this, and that's a form of selling your soul, And think about people on the political arena, people on the world stage that are calling the shot callers in the world,
Yeah.
and are they inhabited consciously or subconsciously by these entities? And I know this why I showed you that. I thought I already showed you that
Mhm.
because could that also be like an observer effect? Okay, let's say that he, other occultists, other
Mhm.
actors, the shot callers on the world stage, could things appear to them like what appears to Terrence Howard could appear to somebody in the these shot callers on the global stage or other occultists in a
Mhm.
different image, a different likeness to
Absolutely.
whatever. I don't know. That's why I wanted to show you that and get your take.
Yeah, well, I don't appeal to that ideology in with respect to opening yourself as a vessel. Number one, we barely know who we are as a species. Even though we've existed for thousands of years, we barely know what consciousness is. We're still groping in the darkness, and I've never been a proponent of just okay, here I am. Think for me. I mean, that's the kind of the role of possession was the phenomenon or the entity to think for you without you understanding what's going on. I'm not just thinking, it's thinking for me, but I'm thinking it's my own thoughts. That's the nature of possession. And we see that kind of it's demonstrated not just in Terrence Howard's, I guess, ritual of incarnation here, but even in serial killer pathology. How many serial killers, which we're going to be doing a show with Michelle Derochet on this here in a little bit. How many serial killers have actually demonstrated a pathology or a ritual knowledge of things they have no real background in? Something else is wearing them as an avatar. Something else, some cases, is causing them to do this, right? It's quite literally manipulating their psychopathology to where, yes, I'm doing this through you, like a hand in the glove. But the glove, the avatar, their mindset, their willingness to kill has to be present. What's This is most reminiscent to me about it's funny, a conference, a parapsychological conference that just happened in October this past year, where of course it's supposed to be about NHI, never really just is, right? It kind of bleeds into other categories of the phenomenon. And in this parapsychological conference, they said that they were going to have an individual vacate their own body and, quote, become a vessel for aliens and extraterrestrials. And so it seems to me that the phenomenon is trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to use um, just kind of reincorporate all of the same occultic relics into this new model where, yeah, sure, it's not demons. It's definitely, it's not channeling. There's certainly got to be, they certainly have to be extraterrestrials that seemingly appear to George Adamski through altars. And, it's just never made any sense to me. But yeah, that does concern me. I can't even imagine. I mean, what are you opening yourself up to exactly? Can we even quantify that? Do we have the vocabulary? And if we don't, why? Why be vulnerable? Makes no sense to me.
Well, these same things that like Terrence Howard and so many others, they conjure, like I say, consciously or subconsciously. Like he was obviously
Hmm.
doing it consciously, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, it's almost like you could say these entities are gods, or
Mm.
maybe in ancient times they could have been angels that appeared, but they
Oh
are
yeah.
they're revealing themselves as I guess a deceptive mask because just because it may help you achieve whatever you want. Like it may help him channel this material for his acting role, whatever job he's on for the next film. help him channel the material and embrace that role that he will engage in, for that movie or TV show, whatever. It's helping him. So he thinks it might be benevolent,
Yeah.
and that it could also, I don't know. It didn't really go in detail how
Mhm.
if it even appeared, or he just felt it. He felt this sensation. He felt this
Mhm.
presence. But in other case studies also, that things appear as bright shiny ones or angels
Yeah.
or fairies or whatever. And
Mhm.
and sometimes they do reveal this deceptive mask, but sometimes they reveal this all love and light mask also. Do you
Yes.
think a lot of
Yeah.
this is the same mask, but it just has its own agenda, but it uses certain people like him, so many others on the global stage, or just regular people
Yeah.
in the UFO community as pawns in the game for whatever kind of deceptive game they got going on?
I think that's glaringly obvious at this point. And when we start to look at the archetypes the phenomenon manifests or incarnates in our presence, it's quite easily seen. I mean, when you're looking at guides, the ghosts, the gods, the demons, the apparitions, it took parapsychology a long time to realize that the apparitions they were recording in hauntings were being followed by orbs. And so this is where I get into the field I'm trying to create, which is called preternatural epiphenomenal philosophy, where it could be that the entire paranormal field is studying the epiphenomenon or the secondary consequence of a presence, thinking that's it, right? Just like parapsychology latched onto the apparition, thinking, oh my God, it's apparitional theory. It's got to be deer and Edna. It's got to be a ghost. They didn't realize that shortly behind the apparition was an orb projecting that archetype. And so, in my mind, we've also seen this is fascinating. We've seen orbs manifest Bigfoot, Yeti, apparitions, and even extraterrestrials. With Chris Bledsoe's case, where yeah, he recorded it. What's so fascinating to me is where you have these experiences, you think, oh my God, my case is a one-off. Nobody else has seen this. I'm the only one. It's like, no, there's phenomenology behind it that has a redefining nature in your context. And so here he comes out and says, okay, I saw a being come out of a ball of light. Must be extraterrestrial. Sure. We've also seen ghosts do that. Guess they're ghosts too. or or we're looking at a singular intelligence that's diversifying its identity in our eyes. One thing I've been looking at lately is that it's using misdirection to moderate human behavior. Always has. If it's a demon, we're going to respond this way. If it's a ghost, we're going to try to communicate. And so what I've been looking at, like just this past week, is trying to form a contextual framework for why it is that the phenomenon incarnates archetypes to guide us in certain ways. It's like Joan of Arc, when a legend angel came to her and said, I want you to conquer, I want you to fight. Next thing you know, you have bloodshed, war. So these beings have been doing this throughout history. So let me kind of break this down. I've had enough case studies in my career to begin asking questions that I believe are more relevant than others. Not that I'm a more relevant researcher, just that out of all the questions I've been asking, these are the ones that are more important. Number one, why is it that we seemingly see orbs projecting various images? Why, if it's one intelligence, all right, a singular intelligence, and it should be just one manifestation, one manifestation, one manifestation. But there seems to be an extension to where the phenomenon diversifies its identity in our eyes, to where it's the same balls of light, but it's an orb, right? It's a ghost, it's a demon, it's an apparition, it's all this. But I started looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, I've got enough case studies where it's like, all right, I have the case study of the experiencer who saw what he thought was an extraterrestrial out of the corner of his eye, and then it manifested to him and just straight in front of him, and it changed its appearance. Something happened. I had the case study one time when I did a show. This was when this is an incubus victim where she's laying in bed, her husband's asleep next to her, and from the left side of her, an entity, she sees it out of the corner of her left eye. It moves towards her, and then she looks at it, and upon looking at it, it's her husband. Now, there are certain components about these incarnations that fascinate me that I believe they're worth noting. Number one, the entity could only hold that shape for a certain amount of time. At first blush, it looked identical to her husband. Matter of fact, she thought it was her husband. They copulated. It was only after the copulation took place that the physiognomy of that entity started to dissolve. And that's when she realized that number one, that can't be my husband because there are certain qualities, facial expressions, facial features that no longer line up with how it originally incarnated. And it was after that that she came to the realization, this is not my husband. Something is wrong here. It shape-shifted into a smoky apparition and flew out the hallway. Next thing I have, I'm just going to go through some case studies. I know this is going to be verbose for people who've heard this, but I'm getting to a point that you most likely never heard from me. This is why I'm doing it. The other case study of mine where the phenomenon employed a learning matrix was the experiencer where she was abducted as a child. And when she was abducted, the entity, the phenomenon, took the shape of her favorite cartoon character or her favorite comic book character. And so as years went by and constantly, she's being constantly taken and taken by Archie and taken by her favorite cartoon. It's fascinating. She said, but when she got older, she evolved and matured, obviously. And that when the phenomenon incarnated, that it was the same cartoon character that always showed up. The only difference is she's older now. She's taller, looking down at it, realizing this is weird. Why would this entity be a cartoon if they don't even exist in real life? That's when the learning matrix was trying to update itself, trying to pull information from the proto-intelligence. How do I incarnate according to her vision, according to her knowledge base? And so you see in real time the learning matrix, boop, 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 can't do it, boop, boop, boop. And so she's watching it, and when it could no longer update, it just dematerialized and left. So my point here is that early in my career, I was drawing this kind of comparison, artificial intelligence or some kind of phenomenon that would often, like I said before, employ a learning matrix. And so I would the way I would articulate that is, okay, there was the pathology of staring into the eyes of the entity. And for those who are familiar with my research, I would often say, okay, it's almost like they're not just hacking into the optic nerve, like David Jacobs says. It's almost like they're hacking into the mind itself and going through the Rolodex of images in our minds that it could incarnate as. And so between the proto-intelligence and the incarnation of the archetype, there is a sharing of information. And I've always been looking for that trigger. How? What's going on? So when I lectured at the Awakening, I likened it to the spider-tailed Iranian viper who's out in the sun, right? He wants to eat birds. So what does he do? He modifies his appearance to an archetype that would be perceivable and that was able to manipulate its prey, which was a spider. He was hungry for a bird. What is a bird hungry for? A spider. And so, literally, by the virtue of evolution, it materialized and created this spider at the very tip of its tail. So now the proto intelligence is hiding in the shadows and it's whipping its tail out in the sun. Bird thinks it's a vulnerable spider. I'm hungry. So he dive bombs onto the spider, latches onto it, not realizing that there's a sharing of information between the snake and the spider. The proto-intelligence is incarnating that archetype. And so we need to realize that there seems to be, again, not just the difference between the proto-intelligence and how it's incarnating, but that sometimes it is seeking to be seen in order to incarnate.
Very well said.
Seeking to be seen. And I've noticed this in the pathology of not just abductions, but in hauntings, where Steve Mera's research also implicated this phenomenon, where he said something fell off the wall, but when they tested it, right, it wasn't as loud as the phenomenon made it. And so when we're looking at this, I kept noticing, right? Okay, you see it from the peripheral. Are you looking at it? Not really. And then when it manifests to you, there is a change where the phenomenon, it's almost like it triggers the phenomenon into art incarnating an archetype. It's no longer the snake. When you see it, it becomes the spider. When you see the orb, it projects the apparition. When you, right, and so there is this kind of co-creation of the archetype. The phenomenon is incarnating.
Mm.
We in quantum mechanics would call that the observer effect, where the proto-intelligence exists, but it seeks to be seen. And once it is seen, the act of observation changes the phenomenon that's being observed. Let me break it down even more. The consciousness of the observer collapses different versions of the same entity.
Nice, man. As always. Keep on, man. Keep on.
This is why, man, I got chills. I'm pumped up about this. This is why, again, we've wrestled with this case study I'm about to mention for years. The same UAP hovered on the same highway. This is one of Dr. Carter Turner's cases. A lot of people didn't even see it, just kept on driving by. But those who did see it could not agree on what they saw. Why? Because the phenomenon seeks to be seen, but by the time we see it, it incarnates the archetype. What that means is we may not be dealing with the ghost, the apparition, the demon, the god, right? We may not even be dealing with a spider at the tip of the snake's tail. What we're really dealing with is with the snake hiding in the shadows of reality and only incarnating through archetypes the moment we observe it. It's triggered. Here I am. And so, what this means, though, is that it's not only seeking to be seen, seeking to be sought, it's seeping or seeking to be shaped.
What if we were tricked?
Yep.
This, I'm not saying you or I, or maybe a few of the people that are listening, but what if majority of this field of research of UFOs, aliens, entities, ghosts, etc., what if they used us, tricked us, or used us as an energy mechanism to manifest this false ideology of what the phenomena really is, and then what
There
we
we
have
go.
today
There we go.
and then what we have today in the mainstream of this paranormal research is not actually what's going on. So we're
Right.
actually we're talking about a bunch of bullshit for the most part, not all of it, but for the most part, a bunch of bullshit that was all manifested through us to bring about this archetypal, I guess, this archetypal part of the phenomena that really is not true in nature. It's a trick by these entities to make us to go down the wrong path in a way and not view them for what they really are, what they have been for thousands of years.
Absolutely. So, John Klein in the movie Mothman Prophecies, John Klein asks Indrid Cold, "What do you look like?" Indrid Cold said, "It depends on who's looking." This is the disconnection that researchers have long had because they kind of get pigeonholed in the following ideology, the following theory, which was that, everything is a projection of us. And so, if you go in, a demonologist goes into a haunting, of course the phenomenon's going to manifest as a demon. Doesn't mean it's demonic, but, so it might bite you, it might scratch you, but that's your fault. I never agreed with that. I thought it was illiterate, still do, because what they're what they're doing is they're confusing two things. There is a snake, but there also is the archetype of the spider. And so what they do is they kind of collapse both intelligences and say, well, yeah, but it's all your fault. You're the reason it's biting you. No, I'm the right. I did fall for the archetype, but there's a proto-intelligence hiding out there that's using me and my vision, consciousness as the observer. It's using me in order to diversify its identity. Now, watch this. It's not the spider that bites, it's the proto-intelligence.
Mm.
I'm only responsible for, sometimes I'm only responsible for the archetype, not the independent entity out there in the shadows. They confuse the two. Oh, well, yeah, you're a demon. No, right? The phenomenon did that. It may incarnate as horns and hooves, but the horns and hooves didn't do it to me. The phenomenon did. And so what I'm looking at again is when the phenomenon manifests, it manifests as proto-intelligence, but when it incarnates, that we are co-creations of that archetype. And many people confuse that. They'll say things like, and I've heard it from other researchers, well, if you got hurt by the entities, it's your fault. You brought in negative energy. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous notion, because they're doing this to children. It's insanity. But what I'm looking at again is that this would explain, this would kind of fill all the holes and check all the boxes. Why is it the phenomenon is evolving according to our awareness of it? Because it's using our observation to shape its form.
Just like what I said, that
Yes.
we basically created this archetypal false image of what this phenomena really is.
Mhm.
And it was basically their trick behind their deceptive mask to keep us on the
Absolutely.
wrong path
It's
of
the
what
mask. It's the mask. Right. And this would explain, okay, early on in ufology, we saw airships until technology called up. Now it's something different. And we've seen evidence of this quite literally where on film we see the difference between manifestation and incarnation. Primarily manifestation is what's seen. Incarnation is tangible, physical. This is fascinating. To where on the camera we'll see an orb show up, and then all of a sudden it changes in something in mid-flight. And that something it changes into shows up on radar. Oh, and so quite literally, and people say, okay, reality can be programmed to a degree. But what I'm looking at is a phenomenon that seeks to be seen. This is why uh, when we have cases of incubi in incubi literature where the entity stares into the eyes of the experiencer, why? It's going through the Rolodexes. That's the one. There's the archetype. I had the case study I had in India, right, where it went through like 7 different boyfriends, only for the victim to realize it was one entity that was going through various archetypes. Which one would you choose today? You tell me. You tell me which one you want. Okay, and this pathology, the phenomenon, the proto-intelligence will manifest too. The archetype will manifest through. And in these interface events, that's how the phenomenon grooms consciousness. Now, take it a step further, take it a step further. The phenomenon seeks to be seen. When it manifests, it seeks to be seen. Because only by the virtue of us observing it does it shape itself into this reality. Ex-girlfriends are ex-girlfriends. When it meant, okay, really? Because when it was over here, it was completely different than when it got right in front of you. No, I'm not talking about, you, but I'm talking about in general. And then beyond our perception, beyond the speed of our vision, before we could even comprehend what was happening, it had already manifested to and through. And now we're looking at an archetype that we co-created. This is how, again, it moderates our human behavior. And I'm going to go into something else too. Fascinating. So it's moderating by misdirection. By incarnating as archetypes, we recognize it controls us. Now, what this appears to be is another version of not just mimicry, but mimicry that turns into parasitism, where the phenomenon, the proto-intelligence, wants to incarnate, not just manifest, it wants to incarnate. And so what it will do, it's going to blow your mind, will kind of nudge us in a direction. Look this way.
Mhm.
Let's go to the CE5 movement.
Mhm.
now we've solved the question of conjuring. Well, you know, I went out there, I looked. I'm the one that went out there and I called upon them. Okay, that's fine. Thumbs up. Who told you where to look?
If you, Nathaniel Gillis, the demonologist, if you went out to a CE5 movement,
Mhm.
and so you're talking about how we're talking about how the phenomena, you know, reveals itself with different
Yeah.
deceptive mask and is with the observer effect, etc. So most of those people that go out there, not all, but a good chunk, I
Mhm.
would say, is more love and light, and they're all here to save us, and you know, we're a threat to our own species, and blah blah blah. So if you went out there amongst
Mhm.
those people, what would the phenomena reveal to you,
I don't
Nathaniel
know.
Gillis? You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, because of the kind of research I'm doing and have been doing, and because of its niche
Not saying
corner
you
of the
would believe it,
field.
not saying you
Right.
believe the mask that it would show you, but what kind of mask would it show to you?
I don't know. It would, because again, I'm not approaching it as if it's an actual, you know, materialized entity. It would be difficult because it would be like, okay, here, Nathaniel, look my way. And it's like, okay, oh, ooh, I'm an alien, right? And I'd be like, yeah, but I don't believe that.
So
And that's
are we saying that the grays
Mhm.
do they even really exist? The reptilians exist?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
because if they do reveal themselves with a different deceptive mask, and it is really part of the observer effect,
Mhm.
and we manifested through these archetypal images of the grays, etc., to other
Mhm.
faces, then what exactly is behind the mask? You know,
Is that,
is it just pure
yeah.
energy within our reality, or is it, you
Oh,
know, some is it
incredible
like
question.
is it a couple different veils? You know, like what is actually the truth behind the mask?
So this gets back into one of the early demonological theories was that, and again, this is just a theory of in demonology, but it was like these abductions aren't these abductions aren't taking place in the body of the body bodily. And so it's like the theory was that these were some kind of astral projections, or the phenomenon was triggering by location in the experiencer, in whatever walked out of the body, whatever potential within the human that was triggered, they take that. And so, yeah, that was even Abraham the mage traveled the whole world. And he's like, you know, he goes, I encountered this witch. She said she was being taken by demons. And so she ingested this potion and said, okay, I want you to watch me be abducted. There, she was confident. I'm being taken. I'm being taken. You know, I'm covenant with them. Everything's fine. And I want you to see what's going on, just because number one, to prove it's happening. Number two, to prove it's my body. And so she took the potion, went with the demons. And when she came back to herself and the high had lifted, Browlin was like, yeah, you were here the whole time. So what we're looking at now is that, and I'm getting to a point here because it's fascinating. All the stuff is fascinating to me. When you're looking at their pathology, it seems to me that there is a species within us that looks like the body, and that species within is what they're taking sometimes. That's why there was such a confusion in demonology. Yeah, they're taking your apparition. The problem starts to generate when you're looking at what they're doing to consciousness. And after they do that to consciousness, they replace you back in your body, and now you have symptoms, right? Subdermal scarifications, hieroglyphs move from underneath the skin to the surface. Take it a step further, the case that I'm working on just recently, I just was talking to the individual yesterday, where it's one of Dr. Carter Turner's cases, and his mother was being taken, both him and his mother. And what she was experiencing and witnessing of the phenomenon was completely contradictory to what everybody else was, but outside. And so this kind of energy field with pulsating balls of light would kind of move over her as she slept. And the father and this her son, which is the one I'm in contact with, would say, okay, what is that? And so the father said, well, that's just a cartoon character, right? Don't be afraid. And so the next day the mother wakes up with sigils from head to toe, and they are sigils. These aren't psychosomatic. Nobody's gonna, right? Okay, these are gender specific sometimes. How does that happen, right? Yeah, so these are Egyptian hieroglyphs, all kinds of weird stuff, Theban alphabet. Well, anyways, my point here being that it seems to me that the proto-intelligence, at least the source, is a lot less materialized. It's a lot less incarnate. The archetypes are incarnate, right? And to the extent, my friend, that the next day when they asked her what happened, she said she was taken by little grays. But what was actually happening on the outside was completely different. And so the phenomenon, again, we're literally in real time, my friend, watching exactly what I'm talking about. The observer effect hovers over, and then as that individual is interfacing with the phenomenon, it's choosing which one. And so this is the same methodology that's being employed with Chris Bledsoe's case. And my fear is that when people are being taken, they don't have enough phenomenological understanding and knowledge to be able to push back and say, okay, these connections exist. There's something wrong with what I'm witnessing. With Chris Bledsoe's case with the lady, there was a ball of light that hovered over him. And from that moment on, things started manifesting to him. And so, if anything, at least the closest to the source would be energy, plasma fields that once we get underneath their shadow, they start, right, to be seen. Now, and when they're seen, right, they start to use our sight to shape the archetype they're incarnating as. Take it a step further. Um, the phenomenon can create physiological constructs where there is a difference, again, between manifestation and incarnation, the snake and the spider, where the phenomenon will hide in the shadows as the snake, but literally incarnate the spider, so much so you could touch it. It's measurable on radar until it devolves back to the shadows, and we see it just dematerializing. We thought that was an alien till it's not, and we've been watching in real time. It's hardened, right? It can materialize to the touch, but then walk through a wall. Dr. Michael Lynch, one of my, he didn't recently passed, but unfortunately he is deceased. He's a good friend of mine, and we would often talk just like you and I would for hours about this stuff. And he said that he was wrapping up an investigation, and he said that he had a laser thermometer that he had just purchased. Because what at this particular time, I think it was in 05 or 06, Russia was kind of they were selling all of their surplus technology, and eBay had a contract with them. It's fascinating. I think it was in 06. So they put all of their surplus technology on eBay. It was selling tons of it. So we got a hold of a lot of their stuff. So he sees this orb materialize. Now, I need to preface that with this. In that investigation, there were people that he had lined up kind of sitting at a table. And he had an ex-special forces man there. Thought he was real tough. And as they're doing the investigation, this orb of light goes through this man's body, terrorizes him, and once it leaves, suddenly he has scars all over him, and he's freaking out, burns, if you will. And so he has that knowledge. He's like, so I know there are orbs here. And so he's outside packing up all of his equipment. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees the orb. And he's thinking, oh man, you guys are in the house doing an investigation. Psh, it's out here, thumbs up. It's out here. And so that's when he thought, you know what, I'm going to do something I've never done. I'm going to see if it's hot. I'm going to see what temperature it is. Not even thinking anything would happen, just hoping, well, maybe. So he shoots the orb with a laser light, and the orb refracted it. Solid. So my point here, everyone, is that I've been trying to find the connection between the proto-intelligence and the archetype. Why is it that the incubi they appear as the husband and as the lovers? Where are they getting these ideas from? Why is it that the alien abduction phenomenon often does the very same thing? Why is it that the alien does the same thing the demon does, and the demon does the same? All of these are being upheld by a common pathology because it's the proto-intelligence that is acting upon the human species. It's manifesting in one dimension and incarnating in another. And all we're seeing is the archetypes. Now, it seeks to be seen because it wants to hide. It seeks to be seen because it's using our sight against us. By the time we lay eyes on it, it's changed. It's incredible. Anyways, I don't want to rant, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I think that solves a major portion of our problem.
So I was wanting to show you this clip also. I'm a fan of Dave Scott's Spaced Out Radio.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've been on that show, but this
Many
guy,
times.
co-host, Mr. Rob, black guy, he interviewed Joseph Jordan a few weeks back. And
Yeah.
let me play this clip real quick, share it.
Experience. Paul Schroeder, control of our minds.
Golly.
Foundation of the research, early research into this phenomenon. You can't just forget it. It's part of what they found, the real pioneers of this phenomenon. Paul Schroeder, poltergeist-like manifestations and telepathic attacks prevailed and intermittently persist to date. After abductions, the interdimensional door left open invites the gangster fringe element of the spirit world, which affixes attachments to seek to clamber aboard. We are galactic psychic pawns in a telepathic chess game against psychic knights and bishops. Such people who notice these objects also will have very dim memories stirring of being on board a craft. It's never an accident when one with awe and curiosity sees craft overhead. It's choreographed. The more I experience seeing shape-shifting involving small gray aliens during rare moments of clarity within abductions, the more I am convinced it's not shape-shifting, but instead telepathic control of our minds. These beings' telepathy is so strong they can force us to perceive or see what they choose, powerfully projected into our mind's eye. Heaven, angels, and spirit helpers, and abduction again of diabolical proportions. And there are strong similarities also between the predatory spiritual treatment of abductees by aliens and the too easily dismissed ancient notions of demonic possession, because demons and aliens both are predators of our spirit and of our consciousness itself. ETs play at being God. Here's another one.
What you think of that, man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so again, we're dealing with archetypes. I've had conversation with Mr. Jordan. He's a very interesting guy. I think that the more evolved ufology becomes, the more they'll see the interconnectivity between demonology and whatever these beings are that are abducting people. But the idea that it's manifesting to and manifesting through is dominant. And everybody has their own way of saying it, but even Barry Fitzgerald, when he talks about the phenomenon when it does incarnate, that it's not enough to manifest to us. It has to manifest through us, and it does so again by going through the Rolodexes of, okay, yeah, and this is. But then it also acts as a possessor of consciousness in a way to where it becomes self-seeing. Now it is determining what it wants to be. And so it's fascinating to me because it's not just the imaging, it's not the interface, the cognitive interface that incarnates, but there is some kind of apparatus to where the witness stops thinking and now becomes thought for. Now the archetype is not just a thought form. Protointelligence is forming the thought that's creating the thought form. It becomes self-seeing. And this again is why I need to be seen in order to construct my archetype. But I can't, right? So I can't be seen without you. I need you, right, to construct my manifestation, my incarnation. Okay, what am I going to do? Thought. Look this way. And we have the illusion of controlling these instances. It's CE5. Well, what do you mean? Did you look at it? Yes. So it becomes self-confirming, and we can kind of chase our own tail after this. But yes, the problem I'm having, though, and this is something that I'm really going to deal with intellectually, is that by the time we see it, it may not be real. That may not be the proto-intelligence. It may be the phenomenon weaponizing the observer effect in order to structure itself in my presence. Do you acknowledge me? Yes. But when you do, it's no longer me.
And it's kind of like how we talked about, in the past, what is this reality, simulation, whatever, it's much more sophisticated than people talk about. We live in a computer game, but it's almost like they
Yes.
use us to rewrite the code to manifest and upload a new program within this reality. And the program
Yes.
is the image that we view the phenomena as currently, in the state of ufology.
Oh my God. Yeah, you hit it on the head, my friend. My brother's a big gamer, and years ago he played a game
So is that
where
basically
he,
it? They're using us to upload a new program, and that like
I
this new
am,
program is from, I guess, 40s and 50s, I guess, or it could go back to Aleister Crowley with Lamb.
yes, absolutely. It implies simulation. It implies simulation. So, with your reference to the computer game, my brother is a gamer. He used to play a video game that where, like, in one setting, he's in a town and it's complete darkness. He has a flashlight, and he can only see what the flashlight is showing him. So, what used to be complete darkness, once the flashlight hits it, it's now a fence. Wasn't a fence before until you saw it. So this is the paradox we exist in. Was it a demon before you saw it?
Was
Was
it
it a
was it a demon before we put that flashlight on it?
that's my point, right? And so when we're dealing with the phenomenon that seeks to be seen when it wants to, then now we got to look at CE5 and say, okay, yeah, look at this. Well, I'm a witness to it. Yeah, I bet. Now let's flip it on its head. It made you a witness. It sought to be seen. It conjured you so you could conjure the archetype.
Mm-hmm.
In playing with this theory, this explains 5 different witnesses, 1 proto-intelligence, six different archetypes, 1 entity in incubi literature, 7 different boyfriends incarnated. And again, this leads into the unified field theory, but this would also explain why hybridism has evolved according to our awareness of it. Why? Because it's our awareness of it that's helping it evolve. It puts us in a position of becoming mortal portals. This is why I believe, this is kind of weird, a weird way of saying it. Collins Elite was asked, like point blank, do you believe they're demons? And if you do believe they're demons, what do we do about it? They said, don't believe in them. Belief creates. And I don't want to get into that, philosophy, but my point here is that we're starting to deconstruct the archetypes. And the problem that we should be having, but many don't want to discuss the fact that abductions are often, like the one I'm working on now, is after the abduction, the case study I'm working on, after the abduction, the experiencer broke out head to toe with Theban alphabet. Shortly after that manifestation, this individual was given apports. Money began to materialize in that house, along with poltergeist activity, along with malevolent haunting. Money. Why? I want to suggest that a lot of this is ritual magic, disguised as archetypes. The pathology is consistent, it's pattern confirming, it's cross cultural. So that's why I'm a proponent of ignoring all the archetypes. Look at the footprints. What are they doing that connects all of the phenomena? Not Steer and Edna, not Uncle Fred, not Horns and Hooves. There seems to be another category out there that I'm leaning towards formerly human that has, and Jason Giorgiani mentioned this, learned how to hack the matrix and is on the other side manipulating our reality.
And needs us to upload the new program that they wish to
There
deceive
we
us.
go. Absolutely. Can you help me co-create this archetype, my friend? I'm over here, but I want you to be a witness. And my God, you want to be a witness too, don't you? Sure, I do. Of course, I'm doing CE5. Hey, it's my intentions. Did you intend to incarnate the phenomenon? Did you even know it needed your sight in order to shape its existence in this reality? And this is the whole point. I want to be a witness. Well, it wants to be witnessed. I want to see. It wants to be seen. I want disclosure. It wants obfuscation. And here we are. I'm going to, David, yes. The idea, right, again, that I'm incarnating this, yes. Look this way. Okay. And that's where I'm at with it. But I think that it starts to check all the boxes to where it's hiding in plain sight by the time we make eye contact with it. I think Barry Fitzgerald said we have maybe 30 seconds. I forget the number. And that's after the phenomenon incarnates as an archetype and a physiological construct. The phenomenon starts to think for you. It starts to help you agree with the incarnation beyond our instinctual awarenesses. The case study, for instance, where the wife was in bed with her husband, knew it. Another husband comes over, can only hold its shape for so long, just like the experiencer, right? Where being taken by the cartoon character. It had to upload, and when it could no longer upload with the learning matrix, the physiognomy changed. But it was telling her, I am your husband. It's the incarnation, and then she starts being fought for, where it's commandeering her own consciousness. And this is why it's so fascinating. The other day, I was on X and I heard about this case study, which I'm going to dive into, but it's a part Skywatcher and it's part of these individuals doing CE5. And the individual that was performing the CE5 ritual was being told by the others that we are benevolent. We're benevolent. They pulled out a cross, the phenomenon stopped. And the individual was literally fighting for her own free will. Again, the idea that it's conjuring us to conjure the archetype. It's real. She was fighting for her own free will to the extent, my friend, where she could not break off the connection. She tried to sever it, couldn't. And so I am of the opinion that the phenomenon seeks to be seen so it can incarnate as the archetype. But in order to do that, it conjures us in order to conjure it. And so we become the mortal portal.
Well said, man. Mind-blowing conversation as always, Nathaniel. Man, I appreciate you coming back
Thank you,
on.
brother.
It was a treat, honor, privilege. I look forward to the next one, man.
Thank you, brother.